Hi there.
How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, it's no problem. My
Well,
glasses are lopsided, though. I'm taking them off.
no problem. Um, so how have you been?
Chugging along.
Yeah.
Where are you in school? I don't even know.
I'm going to school at Fordham right now at Lincoln Center.
Fordham.
Yeah.
That's great. It's in New York somewhere?
Yeah. New
That's
York.
great.
Yeah.
Are
It's
you
nice.
first year?
Yeah, first year. So it's definitely a change of pace from what I'm used to, but
Yeah.
I love it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Are you in the city?
yeah, I am. So I'm on the west side. Um,
Okay.
they have a campus in Lincoln Center.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's fun. Manhattan is it's a whole pull to
Yeah.
schools there.
Yeah, it's nice because you're not really confined to one sort of campus. You have
Right.
lots of different people to hang out with.
Right. Yeah. It's great. Well, thank you for thinking of me for this. I appreciate that.
Of course, I was so excited that you agreed to do it.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Well, I'll just give your bio first, and then if we can jump into the questions, if that's okay with you.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so Jenny Patinkin is a highly sought after beauty expert, entrepreneur, makeup artist, and author known for her earth friendly and age aware approach to beauty. Nationally recognized for her broad industry knowledge and expertise, and as an early adapter of clean beauty, Jenny appears regularly on network TV and prominent digital media channels. She is the best selling author of Lazy Perfection, The Art of Looking Great Without Really Trying. Okay. So I feel in some ways that your bio does not do you justice. I see several careers here, each in very competitive fields. One could call you a media personality, you're a best-selling author, and you're a brand founder. This is kind of a dream path for a lot of people. Many listeners would really like to know how you got where you are. Was there something in your early life that inspired you to be a TV personality? Which was your first career path, right?
Kind of. So the media stuff that I've done kind of happened concurrently with in the run up to the book launch and then for the book launch. So I started doing local TV and some smaller digital media channel work while I was writing my book. I knew that there was going to be like a big launch for the publication of the book, which would put me on a more national broadcast field. Um, so I wasn't doing like news media in the very beginning, but I was doing a lot of, I don't even know how you would explain this website because it doesn't exist anymore, but it was basically home shopping. It was the first generation of home shopping on the internet where you didn't watch it on TV. It was a company called Joyous, and they were basically an e-commerce retailer. They curated a collection of products. This is where actually I first was introduced to Circel.
Oh,
Um, was on joyous.com. So they would do these beautifully produced 2-minute videos, and they would have an expert in that field host the videos. So I approached them about selling my makeup brushes, and they asked me to come and shoot the videos myself. And so I flew out to California, and it was the day after I'd gotten home from our family trip to Morocco, and I was jet lagged and not feeling great. And I shot these videos, and I came home and I said to my husband, like, these sucked. They're not going to do well at all. And when they aired, we got notification, and I said, I don't want to watch them. They were so bad. I was like really awful. And within probably a couple of hours, everything sold out.
wow.
And so that company recognized something in me before I did. And they hired me to be one of their media, like their experts. And so through that, I kind of developed a relationship with their audience. I mean, I think they had like 500,000 people on their list, their subscriber list. And so part of what made me an appealing author was because I already had a transactional relationship with the 500,000 people that saw me 2 to 3 times a week on this website.
Wow.
So it all kind of happened together. I was launching my own product. I was doing a lot of video content for this website. I was writing my book. And then separately, I was doing some regional and like top 20 market broadcast programming. And then it all hit when the book came out. And that took me on to the more national stage.
Wow. So you kind of had this audience from that platform you were using, and then you kind of utilized them when you released your book. And
Correct.
do you think it just like blew up through word of mouth because you already had that audience?
I think I wouldn't have gotten a book deal without that audience.
Yeah, wow.
Without that, every time that audience saw me, they knew that they were going to be buying something.
Right.
It was a very transactional, like, I'm Jenny Patinkin, and today I'm going to show you, this product. And so every time they saw me, they were trained to make a purchase. But it was in the very early days of social media. I think I started working for them in around 2000, maybe 2014.
Wow.
And TikTok was not a thing. YouTube only had long form videos. There wasn't even Facebook Live at that time. And Instagram was not as powerful as it is now. So you can get a book deal now if you have a big audience on any one of those platforms. But at the time, they didn't really exist. And so I had this other platform where I was just an employee of that platform.
Wow, that's really impressive.
It was really, I was in the right place at the right time.
Right. So then you also kind of saw all the social media platforms kind of launch and grow.
Totally.
That
I
must
was
be really
doing
amazing.
makeup for a real housewife, actually. And she was the one who showed me Instagram. I was doing makeup for her in her home. And she was very good friends with Kim Kardashian. I don't think they're friends anymore. But I was doing her makeup and she was like, have you heard about this new platform, Instagram? And so she showed it to me and she said, really, you just need to show a little cleavage and you're going to do great on here. And because she was all about her cleavage, but that's not my thing. Like I couldn't do that. But
right.
yeah, I mean, it was right at the beginning of Instagram.
That is crazy. Wow. How interesting. So then what it kind of inspired you to write the book? I understand why you think it's been successful, but a bestseller is really impressive.
So I really think the book is called Lazy Perfection, and it's that concept, the idea that it doesn't take a ton of effort to look really good, that resonated with a lot of people. And when I was writing the book, it was in the heyday of that very heavy-handed, very technical makeup look that everybody was doing on social media. And this was my answer to the many more people who didn't have the interest or the skill set to do that very technical application. And so really, I think the reason that the book resonated with people was because it's just all about simplicity, and more women still today, but especially then, more women want to wear less makeup.
right.
And people feel like they look better with less makeup, but nobody talks about that in the beauty industry because it's a culture of more.
That's very interesting. So yeah, I feel like the natural look has also come to life a lot lately.
It definitely has. I think with the rise of the clean beauty movement, that the clean girl aesthetic definitely has. But also, I think it's because we as women are an aging population. over 50 million women are in their menopausal state of life, and nobody was talking about menopause. I mean, I've been talking about it for years, but it's a big conversation now. And as you get older and your system changes and your skin changes, it looks fresher to wear less makeup. And so I think that lazy perfection message also really resonated with an over 40 audience.
Well, that's really cool that you kind of gave them a voice because, like you said, when my mom was my age, I don't think that was something she heard about or her mom got to discuss. Like,
No, nobody talked about it. It was shameful and embarrassing. And now Oprah's talking about it.
that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the generation of women who are turning 52 is the average age of menopause. And literally 2 years ago, 50 million women turned 52.
Wow.
And these are women who have income at their disposal and who can really support the beauty industry. But
Right.
no one was talking to them. And so here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, is that kind of what led you to becoming a brand founder? Or I know you were talking about how you first presented your brushes on that early platform. So is that still kind of what you're doing, or did things change for you? Like,
So
what's the path?
the brand really started because of my lazy perfection philosophy and aesthetic. And I just felt like I didn't have the tools that I needed to do that. I wasn't satisfied with the quality of the tools out there. I felt like there were too many tools out there. And that we were being sold a story that wasn't just necessary at all. You don't need 35 brushes to do your makeup. So it really started from the lazy perfection part of my business and my philosophy. And it kind of evolved, and COVID was a big game changer where we pivoted from makeup to skincare tools because people were not going out to get facials. They were not going out to be social. No one was wearing makeup, but everyone was at home taking care of their skin. And that was really at the height of the self-care movement. And so we've had lots of different twists and turns in the development of the Jenny Patinkin brand. COVID was a huge peak for us. I think we launched 8 products during COVID in
Wow.
2021. Yeah.
Impressive. Yeah. And it's almost like a lot of these things that you are passionate about have been more accepted by everyone lately and your audience lately, which is really great. It's like the world is coming to that point that you've been at for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting with trends because I'm not in that industry. There are trend analysts who all they do is like look around for what's coming. For me, it's much more instinctive and intuitive, like talking about menopause.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't see any reason not to do that when I was in the midst of it. And I know I keep talking about menopause, sorry.
No,
But
I'd love to hear about it.
it was just kind of instinctive for me. And I think that a lot of the way my brand has developed has been just my instinct,
Right.
not really based on trend.
It was less of an entrepreneurial kind of motive while you are an entrepreneur, but I feel like it was more something that captured your imagination and you ran with it and like,
Personal need too.
right, yeah,
I just kind of feel like I am everyone. And if it's something I need and I can use that's going to simplify my life, then surely other people could use it too.
totally, right, yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't like I set out to be an entrepreneur. I just kind of was.
Mm.
And it unfolded very organically.
Got it, got it. Yeah, so that's very special. Do you think that your practice with pitching brands helped you kind of pitch your brand, or was it again kind of just this innate thing for you where you wanted to share your experiences so other women could relate to that sort of.
Sales are sales, right? So it wasn't like I was pitching brands. Are you talking about when I was working on that
Yeah.
platform? So it wasn't like I was pitching the brands. I was selling their products. But it's really, I think, about having a voice of authenticity. So when I was given a product that I needed to present to the audience that was watching me on that website, I had to dig deep in some cases to find an authentic message that I could give. I was probably one of the only experts on this platform that wrote my own scripts
Wow.
because I wouldn't be fed the words. If I didn't love the product, I would never use the words, I love this product, even though they may have put it in the script for me. So authentic messaging and transparency have always been really, really important to me. And so whether I am presenting my own brand or working with another brand in collaboration, just having honest messaging is always my strategy. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of promoting a product that I don't, or my own product that I don't fully believe in. There's nothing in my assortment that I don't personally use.
That's really important. And I think that there are a lot of people in the skincare industry who don't really care about what's in the product or how it's bad for the environment. They care more about getting sales, So I think that's
Yeah, I mean, look, the sales are important. You
uh-huh,
need the sales.
uh-huh.
And, there are times where you have to make a decision that you might be a little bit uncomfortable with, but,
Right.
cash is king. And so, there definitely have been moments where I've been less comfortable with the way that I'm presenting my product or somebody else's. Not really my product, but somebody
Right.
else's. And sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah. Well, you make it look easy.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So then when you were kind of taking this authentic approach to um promoting different sorts of brands, did you ever feel like there were brands that you felt had a great product but didn't understand the media game, or it was just a question of luck and so that kind of caused them to struggle or even fail sometimes?
Definitely. I mean, there were a lot of brands that I was working with who did not have original formulation and didn't know how to market the point of difference in their product. And that's a very important aspect of promoting your own product. Like, how is this different than anybody else's? And how is this going to stand out in a very crowded, competitive field? So, I was very tired and still am. I actually posted a reel on this topic on my Instagram not too long ago, like the term Botox in a bottle. How many times have I heard the term Botox in a bottle? Or like Spanx for your face. That's another one people use over and over and again. This is like Spanx for your face. So there definitely are products that I think stand out more in their formulation integrity, where the brand founder really has taken a deep dive into the research and development and sourcing and mixing the ingredients. And there are other brands that are really in it just to make a dollar, and they don't really they're falling back on cheap tricks and wording to sell their product.
Right. And it's probably customers care about that authentic approach that you're talking about. Not only that, I think they can tell when um a brand owner isn't really passionate about what they're doing.
They definitely can. And the idea of having a face behind the brand is relatively new. I mean, the rise of independent beauty and a face forward brand founder was not really a huge thing 10 years ago.
Right.
And so I think you're right. The customer is very, very sensitive to the energy that the brand founder puts into it, and to the messaging, and to the relatability. I mean, there's relatability, and there's also you want people to feel inspired, but also aspirational. The brands need to be aspirational. So somebody can look at the brand founder and say, oh my God, like, look how amazing this brand founder looks. Or, look what this product can do, and feel either inspired or like they aspire to be like that founder.
That's really special.
And there are plenty of brand founders that I think are incredible, but there are also a number who I look at and I'm like, I'm not, that doesn't inspire me.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, the answer to that question is yes, there are lots of brands who I think are lacking in passion. And the other thing is honestly packaging. How a product looks on the shelf is very, very important. And it's too bad because so much of it is personal taste. All my packaging is pink, and there are plenty of people who don't like pink, and they're going to just walk right by my package, and that's okay. I mean, I have to get accustomed to that, but the design aspect of it, if you're in a retail setting in particular, is very important.
Interesting. Yeah. I've talked to my mom a bit about this. She talked to me about how being the face of the brand was a little uncomfortable for her at first. She cared a lot about her message, but being in the public like she was never something she was that used to. But she ended up really enjoying communicating with her audience. And she's also talked to me a bit about packaging, just like you have. We're all consumers, and like we can't help but be drawn to things that we like, or colors that we like, or shapes that we like. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, it for sure is. And, it's not always comfortable putting yourself out there as a brand founder and engaging with your audience. Especially if it's not in your natural wheelhouse. Like I had lots of theater training, and I did competitive speech and theater in high school. I did theater in college. Like I'm not at all uncomfortable with being the face. But social media is really, really weird when you're a brand founder, because you never know what sort of interaction you're going to get. I get like all sorts of creepy messages from men.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. Marriage proposals, which I always show my husband, like, you better step up your game. Look at this guy. But it is also incredibly fulfilling engaging with your audience. I mean, I have probably, I don't know, a couple dozen followers on my social media account who I've never met in person, who feel like friends.
Wow.
Where it's just, we've built a relationship over the years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, growing up in this whole age of social media, I definitely have experience with that, not in the same way, but it's interesting how you can really connect with people through social media.
Absolutely. But the converse is also true, where people can be absolutely horrible behind their screen and don't realize that there's a beating heart living person on the other side of their keyboard.
Wow.
So, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword, but in COVID in particular, I mean, what a great way to stay connected to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it did, I think it can be a tool for good.
Right. So then, do you have strategies that are different from talking to people in person or buyers in person when it comes to media?
No, I'm pretty much the same across the board. It comes all again from that desire to maintain transparency and authenticity. It's one of our brand pillars, is transparency. And I it's gotten me in trouble at times. Like I do some myth busting with products. Like there's a lot of press about certain beauty tools that is just nonsense, but some beauty editor somewhere started. I'll give you the perfect example: gua sha.
Okay.
Right? I love gua sha.
Okay.
Gua sha is, it feels amazing. It's a very like calming, repetitive tool. It's really, I call it a mind, body, spirit tool because like you get into this like meditative state where you're making these long strokes on your face. It makes your skin look nice. And there's energy healing, they say, in the stone that you're using for the gua sha, but it's not going to give you a facelift. Like it is not the same as a surgical facelift. And whether you use it once or whether you use it 4 times a day, every day for 3 weeks, it's not going to give you long-term lasting benefits.
Interesting. So, do you think, I do think some of that, I mean, maybe it's always been like this in the beauty editing business, but it seems like with social media, there's more room to kind of lie about these sorts of things or say that, this gua sha has given me a facelift and you should use one or buy mine, sort of thing.
I don't think the content creators or the brands would think of it as lying. I think they would think of it as marketing.
Okay,
And
interesting.
and I also think that a lot of people genuinely believe that there are long-term benefits
Yeah,
to a tool like Gua sha or whatever else. But a lot of what happens on social media is clickbait. You see these trends. They're really not even trends. They're fads. They flare up and then they go away.
right.
And it's a way to get people engaging with your content. It's not necessarily reliable, high quality information.
Interesting. Yeah,
But I think it would fall under the banner of marketing
got it.
and not like outright lying. And in the case of a lot of content creators, I would say it's more just being uninformed and not doing your own research,
Got it.
um, and just like believing what you see. And that's, as we all know, something you can't do. You cannot believe everything you see on social media.
Right. Right. I mean, I love gua shas. I think they feel so nice.
They
Um,
do, but they're not going to give you a facelift. Not that
yeah.
you need one. You're 19 years old, but I think it's very misleading.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's important to become well informed, or if it's something you're interested in, do your research. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I'm really curious about the difference between selling in a brick and mortar environment versus a digital environment. Um, I wonder with especially the rise of COVID if you've kind of gone more towards digital or um
We're
like
very omni-channel.
okay.
So, we're looking at every possible opportunity to sell our product to customers and get our messages out there. Um, there are a lot of costs associated with doing business in either platform, either channel, but they're they're different. In a brick and mortar, your costs are really having brand representation in the store, somebody who can be there talking to the customers. And with digital marketing for an e-commerce site, it's a lot of co-op marketing programs. It's buying marketing space so that you're in the banner at the top of the page or you're featured in an email. And there's obviously not as much opportunity to have that human interaction as there is in a brick and mortar environment. So you have to rely on those other opportunities to push your product out in front of the customer.
Right.
And there are challenges to both of them. The cost of doing business in either type of environment is significant. You have the added investment of providing testers and gratis in a brick and mortar environment, which can eat into your inventory. And it doesn't necessarily get used and then it dies on the shelf in the store or gets returned to you. So it's just, I think that the difference is how you're spending your money. It's not as simple as putting your product in a store or putting them on a website and expecting them to sell. There's effort that has to go into both. There's just different type of effort.
Right, right. So kind of like expanding upon that in the digital space and in the brick and mortar space, have you ever found yourself kind of being put in an uncomfortable position because you're a female entrepreneur, or just I'm curious about your experience as a female entrepreneur.
I have not had that experience,
That's
thankfully, blessedly.
that's awesome.
But I also am self-funded. So I have not had to go out there and try to raise venture capital or get any investment in my business. And I know that there are many challenges to doing that as a female business owner. But personally, no. And even in a competitive retail environment, I have not found it to be a competitive female dynamic in the stores. With brand founders, I have not found that to be the case. I think it's unusual that I haven't had that experience. But the other thing to keep in mind is that my brand is not skincare and it's not color cosmetics. So I'm not directly competitive with either of those primary categories.
Right.
So my experience is I'm not a threat to a lot of people in the industry.
Right. It's kind of a nice position to be in, I'm sure.
It is a nice position to be in, and it's allowed for a lot of collaboration, and which I love. I love collaborating with other brands.
Oh, that's awesome. So I hear that you only collaborate with brands who you actually feel are passionate about what they're doing. Can you share some of your experiences with collaboration and why you like it so much?
I just have found that these female brand founders everyone's in the same boat, and everyone is experimenting with what works and what doesn't work. And again, because COVID, put such a twist into business, everybody's trying whatever, and just see what sticks. And so you're right. I don't work with brands that I don't believe in, where I don't like the brand founder. I really believe in brand karma.
Yeah.
And there are a few brand founders that I've encountered over the years who I just think are assholes and who I don't want to support their brand because I think they've got bad brand karma.
No fun to work with.
It's no fun to work with. And I can't get out there and be an authentic cheerleader for somebody I think is a dick.
Yeah.
But it is really wonderful collaborating with other brands because everybody is in the same boat. And so we're all just trying to see what works and what doesn't work. And it's constantly changing. And everyone's trying. There's social media collaboration, there's email collaboration, there's in-store collaboration, there's digital marketing collaboration. I mean, there's a million different paths that you can take. But the most important thing is that your brands and your brand ideologies have to have a synergy. Otherwise, the customer is going to recognize that something is off.
Right. That makes sense. So is there a form of collaboration that you like the most, or is it more about the person that you're working with or the brand that you're working with?
The in-person stuff is really fun,
Yeah.
like collaborating with another brand on a masterclass. I've done that a bunch recently. I did a masterclass. There's a brand from Hawaii called Hanua Skincare. And we did a masterclass together at Credo in Dallas in December. And I mean, it was just amazing to hear this other brand founder talk about her brand and how she grew it and what she put into it. And it made me want to support them. And I think she felt the same about my brand, what are the synergies between us as founders and between our product lines, and how can we come together to present that to the customer? And the customer really responds to it, because at the end of the day, the customer wants lazy perfection. They want to be spoon-fed how to do things so that they look and feel better. And if I can collaborate with another brand in a way that makes it easy for the customer, it's perfect.
Wow. Well, that's nice. And it's nice that you found her. Um,
Yeah,
it it sounds like it's a fun way to kind of navigate and explore the industry with someone else as well.
definitely it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad that COVID kind of stopped everything because I was meeting so many brand founders up until early 2020. I mean, I think one of my last trips in 2020 was to a brand founder summit.
Wow.
And I was meeting a lot of people, and a lot has changed in the industry since COVID.
So,
And
oh, go ahead.
I'm not meeting new people at the same rate that I was, and it's sad.
Wow, yeah. So it's you're even kind of still feeling the effects post-COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that is
It's starting to change. It is starting to change. But it's not what it was. You know, when I was with this website Joyous that doesn't exist anymore, I was meeting new brand founders all the time.
right.
And I just don't have the exposure to them that I did, which is a bummer because it
Right.
was a fun part of my job.
That one-to-one connection is really special and kind of like you were talking about. It's nice finding those connections via online, but sometimes they can be very ingenuine or ungenuine, sorry. So,
Like I'm sure it's the same with online dating or texting or group chats. The way that you interact with somebody online doesn't take into account like your chemistry or your dynamic or their body language or your body, like it's a very different dynamic when you're in person.
yeah, I get that. Um, so we touched on this a little bit, and I'm curious about it. So you founded Jenny Patinkin during the sort of indie beauty revolution. Um, and from what you've told me, you were kind of passionate about integrating demands for transparency, integrity, and inclusivity, which I think is kind of like the golden age of beauty. But do you think that there are still opportunities for women to start a brand from her kitchen table with a little capital, and a lot of passion in the laptop? And I know that you had a very specific audience, and that was probably really nice, but I'm just curious if the landscape has changed. Um, if you have any thoughts on that.
I think it's very crowded and very competitive right now. I think you have to have a really unique and powerful brand message if you want to break into mainstream brick and mortar. I think that there are so many different channels for getting your product on the market, whether you're doing fairs, whether you're doing Etsy. Direct to consumer is much more challenging now in a post iOS 14 world because you can't plant a cookie without user approval. And so building up your database for your own digital marketing purposes is extremely challenging. Um, I think there are ways to do it, but I think there are some pretty significant obstacles.
Yeah, right.
But people figure out a way around them. People figure out how to do it. Look at TikTok. I mean, the rise of brands on TikTok has been astonishing.
Yeah,
And 2 years ago, TikTok was nothing. It didn't exist
right.
3 years ago.
It's almost like if it is something you're truly passionate about and there's an audience that you feel like you can connect to somehow, like you would hope that you could make it work and find that audience. And it seems like if you really want that, then it's possible, especially with things like TikTok.
I think you also have to think creatively about how you're going to get your product out there because there are more options than just Sephora and
Right.
TikTok. There's a lot of different paths to getting your product on the market. And it just has to be, you have to be, like you said, passionate, but also very creative about how you are going to spend your limited budget to promote your product.
So, what has that been like for you? Finding creative ways to promote your product. Has it,
Challenging.
yeah. So does it take like a lot of stepping outside of your comfort zone and reaching out to people who you kind of may not respond um
Yeah,
or
it's all about making cold calls. You
okay.
have to, as any entrepreneur in any business, you have to learn how to make a cold call. And you have to know that no isn't personal and it's also not forever. Contrary to no means no in the real world, in the business world, no is not forever. It could be no, not now. Um, and then you refine your pitch or you go back when you've got another product to show somebody. But a closed door is very hard to take. It can feel very personal, but it's not, it's business. So learning how to take those risks is absolutely an integral. Like you've got to be able to take risks to try and promote your business.
Well, that's almost comforting to hear because it can definitely be nerve-wracking. And I almost feel like we're conditioned to talk ourselves out of like we come up with any excuse we can.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm guilty of that too. You know, nobody likes to hear no. Nobody wants to get a critique on a product or a brand that has been their life's work and is their absolute passion. But, you know, you kind of have to step back and think to yourself, they don't know me. Like they don't know anything about me or my life or who I am
right.
and what my core values are, what my moral standards are. All they know is this little tiny sliver that I'm showing them, which is my product.
Right.
And if they don't like the product, okay, it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Right. It's not personal, really.
But sometimes it feels really personal.
Yeah, I think that's being human. I feel like that's normal.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. So then, um, when you do like, have you gotten better at reaching out to people who you feel like fit your brand, or has it been easier since you have more of an established brand now? Um,
So there are two different answers to that. One is if I'm reaching out for somebody who expects to be monetized, and one is reaching out to somebody who I think is an organic fit. Reaching out to somebody who wants to be paid to collaborate with me or to promote, which unfortunately is the world that we live in, that's easy.
yeah,
That's an easy ask. Reaching out to somebody to see if maybe they're interested in an organic kind of like, we'll send you product and if you like it, you can post it kind of dynamic. That's a little harder to navigate for me because again, it's very crowded. There's a lot of competition. There are so many content creators and influencers out there. And it can feel very personal when somebody says no, or more likely just doesn't get back to you at all.
right.
The harder thing for me is not reaching out for promotional help. It's reaching out for like help.
Wow,
Like,
that's interesting.
yeah, that's the harder part for me because then you have to like admit that you need help. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a very hard thing to do because we're working, you know, in a vacuum. It's just us and our small team, and we're talking to each other. And if you have to go outside of that little comfort bubble to ask for help, it's almost like an admission that you can't do it yourself. And I think that's very hard for a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's very hard for me.
Right. So have you ever had to come to terms with that? I think um help is a very natural thing and I can totally understand where you're coming from, but have you ever had like found yourself in the position where you kind of needed to?
Totally.
That's interesting.
Totally. And it's not easy. It's you have to face yourself and face the truth of what's driving your need for help. and it's uncomfortable,
Right.
especially for small business owners who have put their heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears, every cliche you can think of, they've put that into their business. And so reaching out to somebody for help is challenging.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's a lot, but um I guess it's worth it. And I also think it's better to ask before it gets too bad. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it definitely is. I mean, it's like asking for help with anything else. If you're doing a research paper, or,
Yeah.
if you are writing your resume or whatever it is, like you want to make sure that you're getting the help that you need before you turn your paper in, before you submit your resume for a job interview, a job prospect. You want to get the help early enough that it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, I totally get that. It can almost feel like an attack to your ego, but it's natural.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then with that, what do you think are the three most important lessons you've learned in the business?
Oh, I think we've talked about a couple of them. Take
Yeah.
risks.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Take risks. Make a phone call, send an email, send a link to somebody on LinkedIn. It's not personal if they say no. That's a big lesson. Ask for help. And I think the third would be talk to as many people as you can in the industry, because you'd be surprised what information you can get. Even if you don't have any specific questions, like it's helpful to trade information with other people.
Right.
And that's been something very lovely for me in the industry, also with your mom. Your mom is always very generous with her time and willing to talk about business. And it's helpful to like hear somebody else's experience.
Right, right. It's not something that you kind of have to be in it to relate, I guess. And it's probably really nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think so to an extent. Any small business owner would be able to relate.
Right.
But the beauty industry, like any industry, it's a unique animal, and so it is really helpful to get somebody else's perspective on the same industry, because everybody approaches it differently.
Yeah. Well, I know that my mom really appreciates you as well. We both
Oh,
do.
I love her. She's so great.
So then like my last question is kind of just what's next for you? You've already had so many different careers in your life. So are there any other passions you're hoping to explore in a big way or yeah.
Love a little work-life balance. That would be good. That's an objective for me.
Not work all the
Um,
time.
yeah, like just a little more work-life balance. I mean, we are in a big growth stage. We're expanding our product category. We have a lot of interesting new distribution channels, but it's a time suck and it's an energy suck, and it's really hard to step away from it and turn off your brain. So one day I'd like to be able to do that.
Yeah, I bet. See, it sounds like you're getting there. You said
We're
you're,
getting there. We're
yeah,
getting there.
yeah. Well, I love your products and
Thank you.
yeah. And I just wanted to give you a big thank you for sharing your experience with us. This is so valuable for me, and everyone else who's listening. So thank you so much.
Thank you for thinking of me for this. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Well, have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.